I wanted to talk about ego. It's a word that is used so much and quite often used incorrectly. We loosely describe ego as coming from a place of fear, operating from a place of fear. But it's far more than that. Ego is when we step away from the divine, when we are not being humble or looking for that energy of humble and grace in all situations. Now, ego doesn't like to be changed. It doesn't like the evolution that occurs when we're on some kind of spiritual journey. It will resist. It will present in all kinds of ways that are not ideal for our growth. It tries to block our intuition, our instincts, and it will be in that energy that is more of that logical mind, that thinking is more that ego. It sometimes will create a real conflict in us when we're on a spiritual journey, where some things are no longer tolerable, where what we would put up with in the past we know causes an internal conflict, so therefore we don't. Ego can be broken up into a few different groups. When we first start on a spiritual journey, we are excited, and that's when our novice ego shows up, where we think we've found the right path and we want everyone to know about it. We want to share what we've learned, share where we're going, to the point where we want to convince people that our path is right and they should jump on it. But the novice forgets, or maybe doesn't even realize at this point, that everyone's journey is different. So what is right for me may not be right for you. So we have to allow everyone to travel their path and not make them hop on to ours. And I know it's simply because the novice gets very excited about what they're learning, what they're discovering. The next type of ego that presents in a spiritual journey is the member ego, where we find a group of people and we feel that we finally fit. It may be a community online, it may be a community in person. This is a very dangerous ego. And the reason why it can be dangerous is, once again, sometimes there is that pressure, whether it be internal or external, to move from our own belief system and join that of the group to fit in. And remember what I said about everyone has their own path. This is where we step off our path and we hop on the community path. And that's not always aligned to where we should be going. There is a real opportunity where within this member ego, that ideals and beliefs will be shut down if they don't fit in the group. People may be forced to conform or to hold their beliefs close to their heart and not to be true to themselves, so they can be part of this group that they think is really special. It makes them feel separate. They make sometimes these groups even can create an energy of thinking that their group is superior to some other group, that what they talk about or share is more, just more, maybe more special, more unique. They may even say they're more inclusive. But once that judgment gets assigned, that ego energy becomes stronger, where they look at other groups and they look down on them, or they look at them as separate and different. It's that separate energy that we need to be concerned about. Now, The third type of ego is that guru or master ego. It's quite often based on popularity, and because we have social media, it often can be linked to likes and interaction and all that type of thing, where people get put on pedestals based on the popularity, based on what they're perceived as. But a true guru doesn't seek popularity. A true guru, their message draws people to them. They don't need to be really exceptional at marketing. They don't need to be doing all those type of energies that draw people to them. Them just being and sharing their message is all they have to do. And if we think back to some of the traditional gurus, they lived very isolated lives. People sought them out. They did not seek anyone out. And they were the real gurus. So now, because of the world that we live in, with social media, that we have false gurus, false masters that appear to be something and they're really not. So we have to be mindful of that as well and really discern when we are following or listening to people how it sits with our own instincts and intuition, what they're saying. They desperately seek followers and adulation as well. It's linked to how they feel, how they see themselves. But once again, true gurus, like a magnet, just draw people to them. And how do we tell the difference between ego and higher self? A really simple way is to feel the intention that you hold when you are having a thought or experience. Is that energy one of grace and humility, or is there something else behind it? Ego needs and desires solutions that satisfy the self. So we always have to question then, which self are we tapping into when we ask things, when we want to experience things? Even psychics, intuitives, channelers will question when they get information, whether it has come from the ethers, angelic realms, other dimensional beings, or is it just their ego giving them the answers that they want? When we have those things that pop into our head, those higher thoughts, we need to just sit with them for a moment. Is there a win-win behind that energy? Or is it more a self-preservation energy, something that we truly want? And then what happens next? Do we just know innately that what we've been told is accurate, what the message that we've got, our instincts, that it is unwavering, that this is the right way forward for everyone involved in the situation? Even if sometimes those positives take a little while to show up. But is it long-term positive for everyone? Or when we have that light bulb moment, is it more that there is then followed by a nagging doubt, questioning it? Or does it require a response immediately so you can get gratification straight away? Higher self feels calm. It feels centered. It actually makes you go to an energy of being the watcher, the observer of a situation where you're almost outside yourself. It's always compassionate for everyone involved. It even sometimes will mean that you will have to take a step back to see the long-term positives, because they're not always apparent straight away. It has a win-win energy in it, where both sides benefit. It can show up as very strong boundaries that no matter what occurs, because of that win-win, you can't be taken off track, mind can't be changed, it's set. And even when you're in the most chaotic situation, there is a sense of peace about what you have decided, about the energy. Whereas ego runs on adrenaline. So those aha moments have that energy of adrenaline behind them. They also want you to respond quite quickly. There's a sense of righteousness, even powerful, that you're going to come out on top. This is going to work out for you. This is exactly what you needed, that type of thing. There's short-term gratification. Ego wants short-term. It also has that energy of flight and fight within it, where we must respond quickly. There is no sense of win-win. Just you win. It will not let you pause. The ego wants you to respond straight away. So there's no pausing, there's no thinking, there's no evaluating, there's no taking that breath with an ego decision. There's no praying. We just move forward. Ego will also show up as being a victim, having that victim energy. I didn't do anything wrong, they did it to me. Poor me. I don't deserve this. That's ego. Whereas higher self can look at the lessons within it as you remove yourself from the situation. Ego will later feel like there is an energy of regret behind the actions that you had to take straight away. When you pause and you think about it, then you see that maybe you didn't do the right thing. Maybe you didn't respond the right way. Ego cares less about other people or situations. Ego is about self. So the other one, and that's the general ego that shows up in all those kind of ways. So it's very easy to slip into that, to be that energy. But when we're on a spiritual path, it even gets harder to crack ego, because it layers that we have to take off. And we get to that spiritual ego. And in that spiritual ego, there's a sense of being a little bit more superior, because you know things that other people don't know. You're aware of more things. So we always need to check into this self to understand which self we're coming from, higher self or lower self. As we get drawn into what our spiritual wisdom is and how we feel about that. The things to look for when you slip into this spiritual ego is becoming over-identified with your spiritual wisdom and your knowledge that you have. Defending your knowledge and your spiritual righteousness. Being a little bit vain or having a lot of pride in what you know. Seeing others as less because you know more about the spiritual world, the spiritual energy. Lacking genuine emotion and vulnerability and transparency. Lacking radical self-acceptance and honesty about what you know and don't know, lack of self-awareness and self-observation, lack of general curiosity. We can't know it all. There's too much to know. And you should be learning from now until your last breath. Teaching more than you're listening or learning. Lack of gratitude for other teachers, students. Resistance for being called out and lack of accountability. Wearing a mask of positivity to hide your fear. And engaging in spiritual debates where you need to be right. Do you do any of that? If you do, watch for it. Be aware of it. Acknowledge it and try to shift out of that energy. And some of the ways we can acknowledge it is to ask ourselves questions. Am I being present? Authentic in my communication with myself and others, particularly ourselves? Am I speaking from intelligence or from my heart? Do I resist when someone points out that I'm coming from an ego space without going inward and exploring why? Do I not value going inward and being introspective? Do I justify my words and actions? What gift am I not seeing in being called out about my ego? There's always an opportunity to learn, to come from a place of grace and be better. Why do I hide my ego? What am I afraid of? How am I afraid of being seen? Too often we judge others. They may be teachers, they may be peers, they may be someone we see online, and we say they're coming from a place of ego. But by doing that, you are coming from a place of ego. Only the person knows if they're coming from a place of ego. If they've asked these questions, they've gone inward, they've evaluated how they feel and why they're responding a certain way, and they've done it with total, unequivocal honesty. When they've got their answer, they will know if they're coming from ego or not. No one else will know. So it's not our place to judge ever anything. And we can label it as, oh, I'm just observing. That's my experience. But it's ego, just showing in a different way. So I know that as humans, we spend a lot of time in ego. It is very hard to come out of it because we are in a society where it is about self, to be separate, to not be of grace, to not see that energy of grace and gratitude in everything that we experience. We see it from our own perspective. So therefore we are in ego more times than we're not. So I bring this up simply because I know as we move forward in the next few weeks, there's going to be lots of times where we're going to be confronted with energy that is not for our highest good. So rather than judging and being in a place of ego, what I ask you to do is to ask yourself those questions, to try and stay in that energy of higher self as you maneuver your way through the season of holidays. And give yourself a break, because it is hard to work through it. But if we just start acknowledging when it shows up, how it shows up in us, and we only need to worry about us, we don't need to worry about anyone else, then we can move forward with a little bit more grace and a little bit more connection to our higher self. If you like to learn more about these type of topics, or you feel drawn to my energy and what I'm about, by all means, you can explore them on my website, bronwynjanemedium.com. I want to wish you well and have a wonderful day.